Now, I usually try to avoid talking about cases that are still in active investigation, but what happened in Germany in October last year to a little boy is beyond shocking to me, and I feel like the rest of the world should know about this. So, let's talk about it. On the 10th of October 2025, 8-year-old Fabian left the apartment he shared with his mother Doreen. Now there's some important notes here. Fabian had been sick the days prior and didn't go to school. The 10th was a Friday, and his mother asked him in the morning if he was feeling up to go to school, or if he wanted to rest and stay home, that final day of the week too. Unfortunately, Fabian decided not to go to school that day. His mother Doreen left the apartment at around 8:30 to go to work, and she assumed that her son would remain in the apartment to rest. Now, in Germany, when this case first broke, a lot of news outlets claimed the mother told him he could leave the apartment. But she has since given multiple interviews and has stated that that's simply not true, and that she told him to stay in the house until she comes back from work. Now, when she left that morning, she told him that she loved him, and that she would see him later. Tragically, that was the last time she saw her son alive. When she came back from work that day, her son was gone. And as she herself has said, she was pretty livid with him at that point. But, and this is really important, she still thought he went out to see his friends. Now, this is also really important to note, and it's going to be important later. The town they lived in, Güstrow, only has about 30,000 people living in it and its surrounding villages. So there, it's perfectly normal and safe for an 8-year-old to go out by himself. Well, at least it was. Nonetheless, on that day she waited about 30 minutes after she got home to see if he would return, because he knew that she would be home by now. When those 30 minutes were up, she started calling around. But neither his friends nor his father had seen him. Now, another important note, the mother and the father had been separated for years at that point. And this little detail might become important once this case goes to court. Fabian was supposed to spend the weekend with his dad, but he wasn't there. And both of them clearly decided to wait some more to see if he would turn up, because it wasn't unusual for him to stay out later. But once it got dark, the mother called up her friends and they started looking for the boy around town. But at that point, it became obvious that something wasn't right. So the mom went to the police and they started a search immediately. It took 4 days until police found the body of the little boy. Well, actually, they didn't find him. It was someone else. And that someone is the reason why this case is so shocking. And I think you all need to hear about it. On the 14th of October, so 4 days after his disappearance, the police get a call. On the phone is a woman, Gina, and she's telling them that she's pretty sure that she found the body of a dead child, lying next to a small pond in the middle of a field. This field was only a few miles away from Fabian's hometown. While obviously it was shocking that he was dead, the police were a bit more shocked when they figured out who exactly Gina was, because she wasn't a stranger. Gina was the ex-girlfriend of Fabian's father. They had broken up 8 weeks before Fabian disappeared. Now obviously, as you can imagine, not only were the alarm bells ringing with the police, once the press found out, all hell broke loose. But it was gonna get so much worse. Now it's also important to note that the mother, Doreen, and her best friend had given multiple interviews, and the best friend even made a video, I think, for TikTok or YouTube. Because until this point, a lot of people were essentially blaming the mother. And that best friend was also the first person to tell the world, hey, so actually Gina's story of why she was there doesn't add up. Because Gina claimed, not only to the police, but she actually also called Doreen and told her the story, that she drove there with her dogs and a friend to take a walk around the surrounding woods. But that story didn't make sense, because she had a perfectly good forest for a walk right outside her house, and there was technically no reason for her to drive there. And yes, obviously you can go for a walk wherever you want, but it would turn out that Doreen's best friend was right, and it was in fact weird. Now, the broad public wouldn't know how weird exactly this was until later, but first I want to take a detour into the relationship in this family, and the relationship with Gina. Gina and Fabian's father had been together for about 4 years. During that time, there was also about a year-long period where Fabian's father actually had no contact with his son. I can't tell you why, but we do know what Doreen told us, which was that Gina always had a good relationship with Fabian, and apparently even Doreen, and Fabian seemed to genuinely like her. Now, during that period where father and son had no contact, Gina was actually the one who tried to re-establish a relationship between father and son. But as I said, they broke up 8 weeks before Fabian disappeared, and in that time, Gina had had no contact with the boy. Now, I would talk more about the father, but to be honest, to me he seems really off. And even when in those 4 days when no one knew where Fabian was, and there was a witch hunt on the mother, the father was nowhere to be seen. But his behavior would get even worse. We'll get to that at the end. So as I said, it became very clear immediately that something was not adding up in Gina's story. The pond and the field where Fabian was found was roughly in between the town where his mother lived and where his father lived. As far as I'm aware, the cause of death hasn't been made public, and this just shows how absolutely inhumane this killer was, they actually tried to burn the body in the field. The surrounding grass was completely burned off, and I assume his body was also badly burned. Which we have to look at 2 points of view here. One, the killer was trying to get rid of evidence, but this also meant that they took away the last chance for the parents to see their child one last time. Now, Gina didn't just find him. There was more evidence pointing towards her, mainly her car, a bright orange pickup, that people apparently, or allegedly, had seen on the field in the days of Fabian's disappearance. But the investigation is still ongoing, and there's apparently quite a bit of evidence that police haven't made public. But there's also evidence that found its way to the public, and it was shocking. On the 6th of November, multiple live streams started on TikTok Germany, all of them showing a huge police force searching Gina and her grandparents' house and garden, and even the horse stable where she kept her horses. We'll get back to said horses in a second, and this is important to note, especially because we know Fabian's body was burned, Gina was in conflict with the law before because she tried to burn one of her dead horses, which is illegal in Germany. In the live streams, you could see the police carrying boxes of stuff out of the house and apparently even digging in the garden. But what exactly they took is still unknown until the court case opens. Now, weirdly enough, in the live streams, you could see Gina outside, not worried at all. In some images, she even seemed to be joking around with the police. But that would stop, because she did get arrested that day. And she's still in prison, awaiting trial today. Now, we do know the likely reason for the arrest though. Because a man went to the German TV channel RTL, and he gave that reporter a shocking statement. And that would likely also explain the arrest while they were still gathering evidence. That man claimed that the night before Gina called the police, she took that man to the pond and showed him Fabian's body. I can't tell you what she told him happened to Fabian because the only information he gave the reporter was that she took him there. He claimed he didn't immediately call the police because he was worried they would try to pin it on him. But when he got up in the morning and heard that they found the body, he immediately went to the police to tell them that she took him there. And it gets worse. Because that RTL reporter also went to the police. Because Gina allegedly took another man there that night. And Gina didn't really willingly call the police the next day either. Remember how I said she went there for a walk with a friend? Yeah. Allegedly, that friend told her that either she would call the police right now or she would do it. And that's pretty much all we know so far. Oh, wait, the father. Yeah. Even though it's pretty obvious who the killer is here, allegedly. Remember those horses I told you about? Guess who's taking care of them? Oh yeah, Fabian's father. Guess who he hasn't spoken to, not even at the funeral? Fabian's mother. Absolutely unhinged if you ask me. As I said, that's all we know so far. Now, due to German law, I can't show you Gina's face. But I can mention that there's a video of her and Fabian's father online. Because whether she killed him or not, she did take it upon herself to take 3 people on a sightseeing tour of a dead little boy. Now, the newest news we have is that apparently it will go to court in February, so I will keep you updated.